as place names are often misremembered or misspelt, and dates blurry. Perhaps unsurprisingly, war memoirs have been widely labelled as unreliable, with historians' mistrust not limited to books from the Napoleonic period, but also applied to those from the conflicts of the 20th century. To unreliable, we might well add unrepresentative. There are, ironically, simultaneously far too many of these books and too few. Autobiographical writing by both civilians and combatants erupted across the world during the more than 20 years of upheaval we now dub the Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars, 1792 to 1815, making it necessary to choose a case study. In this book, Soldiers' Tales of Napoleon's War in Spain and Portugal. But even the total outpouring of life writing from this period represents only a fraction of the real number of lived experiences. Peninsular War memoirs themselves were only written and published by a tiny percentage of the soldiers who had participated in that conflict. Just 242 or so authors out of the more than 500,000 total troops dispatched to the peninsula in the armies of Britain, which included Portuguese regiments, France, and Spain. Within these figures, 103 memoirs were authored by British soldiers and published in the 100 years following the war, 103 by French soldiers, and 58 by their Spanish counterparts. Leading experts in the field contest that no comparable Portuguese memoirs exist at all. Whether or not this is true will be discussed in Chapter 3. This handful of authors can hardly be argued to speak for the whole, therefore, and yet the act of both writing and publishing sets them apart. Who these men were, what they wanted, and how entering print helped them to achieve it is another question that hangs over the war memoir genre. A comparison across countries complicates the matter further. Twice as many memoirs were produced by veterans of the British or French armies as compared to those from Spain, and they were all published at different times, translated into different languages, and reprinted in different places. Spanish memoirs often did not contain the same long, colourful life stories that Northern European audiences grew to expect. They did not even usually look the same. British and French memoirs also varied hugely, some manifesting themselves in the shape of a single slim volume portable in a pocket, others as 5 grand tomes sitting weightily on private library shelves. The genres in which their writers dabbled spanned dry military histories, descriptive travel guides, and exaggerated tales of adventure, romance, and woe. To increase the historian's headache, these books were all sold at different prices by different booksellers in different cities at different times, and continue to be so. Memoirs from the Napoleonic period, having been printed throughout the entire 19th century, are still being discovered and reprinted to this day. Peninsular War memoirs therefore pose an impressive range of methodological questions, issues that have not yet been confronted in the existing literature, which is itself broad, disparate, and sharply divided by language. This book is my attempt to answer these questions, to provide a field guide of sorts on what to do with war memoirs. In the chapters that follow, I take the period from the start of the Peninsular War to the outbreak of the First World War as my main focus, exploring memoir production across Europe and the Atlantic during what is often termed the long 19th century, from one devastating series of international conflicts to another. In doing so, I challenge the state of existing literature on this topic and offer an alternative methodological approach to this type of source material, one that questions the predominantly Northern European and Anglophone reading of the Napoleonic period and its legacy, interrogates the role of soldiers in the production of war writing, and contributes to broader debates about the construction of memory and the representation of war at a crucial time in modern history. Throughout this book, I argue that these memoirs as a group, unwieldy and awkward as they may be, made a deep impression on 19th century culture, memory, and literature.